It's cybercrime, scams, and seniors, a trifecta. And of course, a trifecta is a winning group of three. And so tonight we happen to have a winning group of three very professional individuals who are really knowledgeable about this topic, and they're going to present to you tonight. So let me introduce them. We have two members of our local law enforcement community. Officer Daniel Quinn has been with the Westchester Borough Police Department since 2016. And during his career, he has dealt with many of the topics that you'll be hearing about tonight, including identity theft, false unemployment claims, and extortion, among others. His investigations have resulted in multiple arrests and convictions in our area. His colleague, Officer Aaron Davis, started in law enforcement in 2003, first working for the Borough of Kennett Square, and then moving on to Westchester Borough in 2004. Currently, he is in the community policing office, but he has also been a patrol officer and he's served in the criminal unit. He has also investigated several hundred theft and fraud cases, including cases involving the elderly. He wanted me to mention that he has one particular case still open from 5 years ago that involves a local grandmother here in Westchester who sent a quote unquote attorney a number of gift cards to supposedly bail out her grandson. It was all a fraud, and this particular criminal is still wanted up and down the East Coast for similar type fraud. So you'll hear more about those types of things tonight. Our third speaker is Matt Davis, and Matt is the Assistant Vice President and Cluster Branch Leader for the Westchester Borough and Newtown Square branches of Truist Bank. He's been in banking for 6 years, beginning as a personal banker, but now he's in the Westchester branch where he can walk to work. He has, interestingly enough, a Bachelor of Architecture from Virginia Tech, and he's currently working on his master's degree in microbiology. So talk about a trifecta. Matt is a banker, architect, and microbiologist. So gentlemen, welcome, and we're really looking forward to all of your presentations tonight. Thanks for being with us.
So this is just some basic information about how much money has been lost just in the state of Pennsylvania through people 60 and older in the year of 2020. $23 million was lost in total, which ranks them 13th in the country for states. And the average loss per person who was a victim is about $6,500. So it's a pretty serious topic if you just grab that from those numbers. And go to the next one. So first thing we have to ask, why do we think that we're vulnerable? Technology is everywhere, and maybe you're unfamiliar with it. It's not necessarily something you grew up with. Online banking is easier, and shopping is easier online. It's especially been safer with COVID, and you might have limited knowledge on how to prevent yourself being a victim. And it might be the first time that you're out on your own. Maybe you had a spouse that had passed away, and now you're on your own, and they kind of handle all this stuff for you, and now you're still trying to get adjusted to it. You can go to the next. So a little bit of how extortion works. They'll call a victim with saying they have personal or compromising information on them, and they'll expect payment for them to not release this information to anybody else. If it's happened more than once to this specific person they're calling, they'll keep trying it again until it doesn't work anymore. So the best thing is to stop it the first time.
How to prevent being a victim, several different factors here. If they do have your personal information, they will not tell you. Stop and think. Do they actually have anything compromising on you? Don't give them any money. If this could be legitimate, call a caregiver, a family member, police department. We'll be happy to check that out for you and verify if we think it's a scam or not. Non-payment, non-delivery, the combination of online shopping and social media creates easy venues for scammers to post false advertisements. Many victims report ordering items from these links. They click on it not knowing that it's not the actual company and you're going to a fraudulent website.
So the best way to combat something like this is to use the trusted websites. Obviously, we all know Amazon and things of that like. Watch for poorly made websites. If it looks like it's kind of shoddily made, it's probably fake. If items are overly discounted, something is 90% off and it's like a big flat screen TV. If it's too good to be true, probably is. Just kind of think about that. If someone's buying something from you, they're going to send you possibly a larger amount than what you're asking for, and they say keep the portion that you're owed and then send back the rest. That could be a scam because they're waiting for the check to clear into your bank. You send them money that you think is in there, and then 3 days later the check bounces, and now you're out that money that was never really in there. And if you can, try to meet someone in person to exchange. If you are buying from them or selling to them, you can always stop by the police department if you feel like it may or may not be a scam. You can always meet up here. And if they don't want to do that, you're probably scaring them off anyway.
Identity theft. Someone gets your personal information and runs up bills in your name. They might use your Social Security or Medicare number, your credit card, or your medical insurance, along with your good name. How would you know? You could get bills for things you didn't buy or services you didn't get. Your bank account might have withdrawals you didn't make. You might not get bills you expect, or you could check your credit report and find out you have accounts on there that you didn't open and have no knowledge of. Protect your information. That's the important thing here. Put yourself in another person's shoes. Where would they find your credit card or Social Security number? Protect your personal information by shredding documents before you throw them out, by giving your Social Security number only when you must, and by using strong passwords online. Read your monthly statements and check your credit. When you get your account statements and explanations of benefits, read them for accuracy. You should recognize what's there. Once a year, get your credit report for free from annualcreditreport.com, or you can sign up for a free account with one of the 3 credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion.
So for credit card fraud, you have to think about how many cards do you have, how often do you use them, where are they right now, and when did you last check your statement? Things that you need to know to prevent some sort of fraud on your credit cards. Think about how many people have access to your belongings.
You are muted.
You're
Oh.
muted for
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
So where we leave off? This whole slide?
Where
Yeah,
did
well,
you
so-
last check your statement?
When did you last
Okay,
check your
okay, perfect. So they're important questions to ask anybody. Think about how many people have access to your belongings. Maybe someone can get your credit card number where you are right now. Just make sure you keep your things secure in your home and on your person when you're out. Place fraud alerts on your cards by using the whatever bank you have or whoever the card holder is, or by using one of the 3 credit bureaus to place alerts on your credit. And also use multi-factor authentication. What that means is if you're online and you're trying to access your data, your cards, your information, make sure that it's not just a password questions, other ways that people would have to know more and more things to get into your information.
A common 2-factor authentication is you go to sign in with your login and your password, and then the account says, we're going to text you, a passcode. So as a second factor of authentication, although it can be very annoying and time consuming, it is a great security feature. So what to do? If your card has been stolen, lost, or you notice fraudulent charges, cancel the card. You can always get a new one. You can always set up your automatic payments and stuff with the new card. Most banks plan for fraud and your money may be credited back to you. Report it to the police. Your bank is going to want a police incident number from you to really even initiate the claim. Scammers use email or text messages to trick you into giving them your personal information. They may try to steal your password, your account number, your Social Security number. If they get that information, they could gain access to your email, bank, or other accounts. Scammers launch thousands of phishing attacks like these every day, and they're often successful.
This is just a small picture of an example of phishing. It looks pretty legitimate. It's got Netflix on there. One of the things you got to think about, do you even have a Netflix account? They'll send these messages saying it's from Wells Fargo or Capital One or whatever it is. Just think, do I even have this? If you don't have that kind of an account, don't even bother opening it because you know it's not real.
Protect your computer by using security software. Protect your mobile phone by setting software to update automatically. And again, protect your accounts by using multi-factor authentication. What to do if you've been a victim, Officer Quinn?
If you've been a victim, go to the Federal Trade Commission at this link. You'll all get that at a later date after this is completed. You can log in there and let them know that you think you've been a victim and this is what happened, and they'll walk you through what to do. If you feel your information has been compromised, also there's another website for identity theft. You can go on there also, and they'll walk you through the steps of how to report that.
Government scams. We've seen a lot of these in the last few years, especially with COVID and COVID-related business with the government. So besides faking your phone number, they'll pretend they're with a real government agency like the Social Security Administration, or they'll make up an official sounding name of a government agency like the Federal Grants Administration, which doesn't even exist. IRS imposter scams, they're a big one that we see. They occur when someone contacts you pretending to work for the IRS. The imposter may contact you by phone, email, postal mail, or even a text message.
Things to know if this is going to be fraud. The government, the IRS, whoever it is, they will not call you or text you or reach out through social media or send you a simple email. Government grants are going to be just offered to anybody, and they're much less going to offer to pay for home repairs, medical costs, and personal needs. If you are going to receive something from the IRS or a government agency, it's going to be a phone call or a letter, and they're going to let you know exactly what you have to do to remedy whatever issue that there is. It's not going to be a simple text or anything.
What will they do? If an IRS representative visits you, he or she will always provide two forms of official credentials called a pocket commission and a HSPD 12 card. That card is a government-wide standard for secure and reliable forms of identification for federal employees and contractors. You have the right to see these credentials. If you would like to verify information on this card, the representative will provide you with a dedicated phone number for verifying the information and confirming their identity. The IRS initiates most contacts through regular mail delivered by the United States Post Office. Even then, taxpayers will generally first receive several letters called notices from the IRS in the mail.
And this is an example of what the IRS letter might look like. It looks fairly official. It's, if you were able to see it just on the computer, this is just a picture of it. It's very specific about what it is. It's not as blurry as it looks on the picture here. And if you do receive the presentation here, you'll be able to see that yourself if you can open up on your computer.
Grandparent scam. I believe Linda touched on that, one of my open cases. This is probably one of the biggest ones that we see through the phone, through phone calls. So a grandparent receives a phone call or sometimes an email from a grandchild. If it is a phone call, it's often late at night or early in the morning when most people aren't thinking that clearly. Usually the person on the other end of the phone claims to be traveling in a foreign country and has got no bad situation, like being arrested for drugs, getting a car accident, being mugged. It needs money wired ASAP, and the caller doesn't want his or her parents told. Sometimes instead of the grandchild making the phone call, the criminal pretends to be an arresting police officer, a lawyer, or a doctor at a hospital, or some other person. We also receive complaints about the phony grandchild talking first and then handing the phone over to an accomplice. Usually we see what this is, it's somebody that calls and says, hey, I'm an attorney. I know your grandson goes to college at Westchester University. I was out drinking last night, got in a car accident, hurt several people. He's in jail. I represent him. The bail's $3,000. And then they'll say that the credit card machine doesn't work, But hey, if you can go to Target and get $3,000 worth of gift cards, you can pay me that way because I have to go shop there this weekend anyway.
And this is essentially a longer example of what Officer Davis just said. They'll call and they'll say that we need X amount of money. The police will never call you and ask you for money. We're never going to do that because we arrested somebody. We don't handle that whatsoever. And any legitimate, reliable source that if someone does have something that they have to pay for, they're not going to ask you for Green Dot gift cards or Visa gift cards or anything like that. They're going to ask for something that's more official than that.
Sum it up.
So to summarize, they're all fairly similar, all the different examples that we spoke of. The best way to protect yourself through any of these is don't give your information to anybody that you don't know and trust already. Check on your banking statements, your credit report, check it regularly, once a week, once a month at least, just so that you can keep up on what's changing. These people can strike it at any moment, and you will do yourself a favor by being up to date on what you know about your accounts. Once again, place alerts on your profiles. If something seems fishy, the Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, your credit card companies, they're going to let you know or call you. Hey, are you in Maryland right now? No, and then they'll stop everything. If you think it might be a scam, someone does call you with the grandparent scam, don't continue with it. Hang up, get another number, say, hey, can I call you on this number? You can call us. You can always call us. If you think you've already been a victim, you can always cancel your cards, get new cards. And oftentimes through the banks, you can recoup that money. They're well versed in situations like this.
And just to emphasize, if you think you want to run something by us, please call us. You're not wasting our time. We get that time and time again. Oh, I'm sorry, I wasted your time.
That's why we're here.
It's real. So we definitely don't mind helping out. Thanks for your time, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So we're making good time here. Any burning questions up to this point? I know we're going to open it up at the end. And I'm about to introduce Matt Davis here to kind of give us the financial end of things. Let me switch that slide, and always feel free, just put any questions down in the chat. And doesn't look like we have any. So Matt, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right. So the officers, they hit on a very poignant topic there. The banks, we do unfortunately build this into our cost of doing business. Most of banking is really an equation of risk management, and this type of fraud, well, fraud in general, is on a massive increase. And so many forms of the fraud that they touched on are, unfortunately for all of our costs of living, built into the cost of our financial sector. And so the banks have insurers. Those insurers have reinsurers. Visa is probably one of the most insured companies in the world, because when you have debit card fraud, if your debit card or your credit card number has been stolen, whether that be through the internet or because you paid for gas at a pump that had what's called a card skimmer on it that'll steal the details, you are usually made whole by Visa or by your bank, and that's part of that risk profile. Same thing with many forms of online banking. If somebody has broken into your online banking and uses their access to your computer to go and steal money from you, usually you're not held liable. And so the points that I wanted to touch on are the most painful ones. And those are the ones where you've been fooled into trusting these individuals that are reaching out to you, and where you go and actually initiate the transfer of funds. They're the most painful because they they hurt the most, we feel like we've been duped, and because there's usually no recourse. And so the way that I set up the presentation is a series of case studies. If we could go to the next slide, thank you. They all have this one thing in common, and that's a sense of urgency. There's some form of reason, and that reason will shift from whatever type of fraud is being executed upon you. That sense of urgency is always going to be there. There's something that has to be done. You need to move now, or something bad is going to happen. Whether that's the extortion that they mentioned at the very beginning, or it's your grandchild is in trouble, or it's you're going to miss out on a great deal. Any of those things, it boils down to an equation of there's a sense of urgency. You need to do this now, or you're going to miss out, or you're going to get in trouble, or your loved ones are going to be hurt, something along those lines. And so the four that I'll go through, it's the somebody's in trouble one. It's the something's too good to be true. The newfound love, romance scams are the most painful to both try to interject and stop, but also to experience or to see loved ones experience. And then the last one I call that we can fix that for you. And so if we could go to the next slide, please. Something that, so it's nothing is ever so important that it has to be done right now. There's just, life doesn't work that way in the society that we live in. There's a timeline on things. And if somebody is trying to force you to do something in this moment, that should be your first red flag. As the officers pointed out, police forces and sheriff's offices, they don't deal in Walmart gift cards. And we all know, never okay to pay a bribe. And police officers are never going to ask you for a bribe. As he pointed out, that's not the area they deal in, but they're also honest individuals that are upholding our laws. They're not going to ask you to pay a bribe. And so if that's something that comes up in a phone call that's been, that's just showed up on your call log, you should hang up. You should also ask, was your grandchild or your grandson or granddaughter, were they really traveling? Are they in Grand Rapids? Are they in Las Vegas? Is it their spring break? And can you call your son or daughter and find out if your grandchild is really traveling? That's the easiest way to go and stop something in its tracks, is find out, is this person, say, I'll call you back. Usually right there, you've broken the chain, and they're going to move on to the next person that they're going to try to defraud, because they've sensed that there's pushback, and it's easier for them to just call the next person on their list than it is to try to follow up with you and convince you. This is so something to point out here is that all of these examples are unfortunately things I've seen, and I've sanitized them for details, but each of these things are real. And so it may seem outlandish, but these things, these are real methods that are tried. And so say you may have always wanted to buy that property at the shore, but if it's going to be sold to the next person in the next 30 minutes, if you don't go and wire funds right now, even if it's real, it's a bad deal. There's something wrong with that place that they're trying to convince you to move quickly on it. But in reality, it doesn't exist. And they're trying to just get you to move quickly and send money, and then they're going to disappear. So take a moment to stop and think, does this sound right? Next slide, please. The too good to be true, as I pointed out, these are all real. They sound very, very ridiculous, but no long lost relative is going to reach out to you and tell you that you've got an inheritance that's owed to you. And if you only just go and pay the taxes on it, they can go and send it to you, or that there's some sort of a legal fee that's holding it up and you just need to pay that first, or they'll get it to you. Again, take a moment to stop and think, does this sound right? Taxes, you pay them after the fact. You don't pay them up front. And why is somebody reaching out to you out of the blue and looking for a finder's fee? Why are they so good-natured as to reach out to you? and then they're good natured, but then they're going to take their cut. It doesn't make sense. It's better to hang up. This one at the bottom, met a nice couple at the bar, and to commemorate the great time that they had that night, they went and bought a lottery ticket in their name. And would you know, you won. And now I'm reaching out to you, but there's got to be taxes paid up front so that I can go and send it to you. That's not real. And to the point of the officers earlier, it's best to go and hang up, because if you continue talking to these people, every moment that you're talking to them is another moment where you could fall victim to their persuasion. If you hang up and you don't answer anymore, the risk is over. The moment you pick back up and they're able to re-engage you, they're able to potentially convince you. And the persuasion aspect is really big in this next one, the newfound love. A lot of people have found solace and community on the internet, especially over the last few years. And especially if you're not able to go out very much, the internet is a grand connector of people. And unfortunately, criminals know that, and they're going to capitalize on that. It's a horrible aspect of humanity, but it's one that we all experience. Did somebody reach out to you randomly, whether it's on Facebook that you have to, you stay in touch with your friends or your grandchildren? Did somebody randomly message you on there, and have you struck up a friendship that's evolved into a romance? It's important to periodically ask yourself, have you ever met these people? And do you remember, maybe it's been going on for a while, do you remember who introduced to whom? Did you see this person in a message board or something and reach out to them, or was it that they actually initiated the contact? And if they're now asking you for money, why are they now asking you for money? And then circle back to, have you ever really met this person? The two most common that we see hinge around the relationship that's about to bud into a marriage or into moving in together, and the romantic partner has said, I've gone in, released an apartment for us, but my funds are tied up right now and I need to pay the security deposit. Can you go and send funds to this like wire funds to the landlord here, and they'll give you wire instructions? Or that they've gone and opened a joint bank account and their funds are being held. If they go in, so they don't want to go and deposit another check and have it also held, they need to go and spend, have money available to buy the furnishings for the apartment, or to go and do something that will benefit the two of you. If I send you this check by FedEx, could you go and you can cash it and then send me most of it, but it's going to be a pain for you. So why don't you keep $200 of it? That's going to be similar to what the officers mentioned of there's a float on checks. They're counting on those funds being made available to you before the check comes back bounced. And then you're out all of that money, and you're going to probably have some form of you're going to have to pay all the money back if you're going to die. Next slide, please. So this last case study is there are a lot of bad timeshare deals that people can enter into in I've seen it especially in Latin American countries. Peru and Mexico are the two specific examples that I've encountered recently. And you may have done something along these lines, bought a timeshare, bought futures in a timeshare development that's being built, something along those lines. Maybe it doesn't involve timeshares, but maybe it's some form of problem. Have you gone and been irritated enough that you've posted on a message board and said, does anybody else encountered this? Or have you reached out to the office of the phone number that you were given when you went and invested in this thing in the first place. And now somebody's reaching out to you to offer to fix that problem for you. A, was it out of the blue? Why is this person altruistically reaching out to you? And B, if you did go and do something like post on a message board, that's human nature. But what you have done is you've made it apparent to the whole world that looks at that message board that you are a potential victim for somebody impersonating somebody in authority, like a lawyer or a tax agent or a real estate agent that's offering to sell it. And so what we've seen is, and what I would suggest is think about how commerce works. If you have a lawyer, you pay them afterwards, or you pay them a contingency fund or a contingency of whatever you've been awarded. You don't pay up front. If you sell a house, you pay the taxes afterwards. You pay the commission at the sale. If the funds are locked up in a foreign country, why are they locked up? Even if you've been convinced that you're owed that money, do you really want to pay a government bribe to gain access to it? And do you, if funds are locked up, there's often, if we see in banking, there's an OFAC or a Patriot Act reason for why those funds are locked up. You don't want to be involved in that, besides the fact that it doesn't exist to begin with. But if that can be a deterrent for you, that's good. Next slide, please. So to circle back, the sense of urgency is the most important thing to hammer home here. Be wary of people that are calling you and then telling you information about yourself. The reason they're doing that is that they're trying to convince you that they are somebody that is authorized to be speaking to you, that you should trust. The plain and simple is that no bank or investment advisor is ever going to call you and then ask you to confirm, tell you information about yourself, and then ask you to confirm it for them. The cliche is true. Banks are going to call you up and then they're going to ask you 7 questions before they can go and tell you why they're calling you up. It's not the other way around. We're not going to give out information. And the reality is that, not to put a frightening spin on it, but most of our information has been stolen already. And if you, and what you're experiencing now, if you've got somebody on the phone with you that's telling you, are you Jane Smith with date of birth 7/21/1947, that means that your data has been stolen and has been resold. And now the reason that they bought that data is to try to convince you to give them your bank account numbers, or to go and send them money, or to do something that will in some way financially benefit them. It's the cost of their doing business. They've bought your data to try to then convince you to trust them. So if somebody's calling you up and doing their utmost to convince you that they are who they say they are, hang up. It's not, that should be a red flag to you. And then I think the last slide here, we just go to the next slide, please. To just wrap it up, all of these incorporate a sense of urgency. They know, criminals know that people make mistakes when they have to act quickly. And that is going to be their attempt to, their objective is to exploit that tendency of human nature. The money that you lose to debit card theft, debit card fraud, to having your computer hacked into and funds stolen, that is usually recoverable. What's not recoverable is when you are the one that initiates the transfer. And to make that happen, criminals need to convince you to trust them. And so your biggest defense is to always require proof. Never take them for their word. If I call you up and I say, you can call this phone number to verify that I am who I say I am, how do you know that I don't just have my buddy here next to me out off phone, ready to answer that phone call and say, oh yeah, no, he's real. Go to Google. If somebody says that they're calling from your bank, Google your bank's phone number. look up the Westchester branch of Truist or of Wells Fargo or of Fulton Bank or of S&T Bank is also in the borough. Look up that branch and call them. And if it's the middle of the night, then wait until the next day. Nothing bad's going to happen to you if you wait until the next day. And just remember that police in this country don't take bribes, and they're not going to ever deal in Walmart gift cards or Apple gift cards. So I think that wraps up my presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Thanks, Matt. And I am going to spotlight you as well as the officers here. And I have a couple questions, so why don't we get to it? Give me 1 second. Questions. Okay, so what are some steps that the police take, once someone's reported like they've been scammed? What are some steps that you take starting to catch the person?
Sorry, we were debating on who was going to answer the question. I missed the last
Oh.
half of it.
Steps that we take.
Steps that we're going to take once it's been reported to us.
Yeah.
So it depends on the type of investigation it has to be. If it's someone asked me for Walmart gift cards or Green Dot gift cards, it really depends on where they're at in the process. If they got the cards but they didn't give the numbers over, there's a way for us to help them recoup that. They can return the cards. We can try to track down the number. A lot of these numbers, unfortunately, they're coming from overseas or South America, and there's really no reciprocity as far as us going and getting a warrant for someone in Saudi Arabia or Venezuela or anything like that. But we can try to help the person here and now to recoup what they do have available.
I have one from Anne who asks, how do the scammers find the people that they target? Where do they find the info and how do they build those lists? I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, but maybe you could speak to that.
What we usually see is a lot of that information comes from social media. Let's say a granddaughter is going to Westchester University for 4 years now, and every Mother's Day, they've her mother and grandmother, the families have gone to, let's use my favorite restaurant, Limoncello. They go there for Mother's Day. And the granddaughter posts this, her profile's public. Grandmother has a social media profile that's also public. And the person has a lot of information that, let's say after the 4th year going to Limoncello, and they went to Barnaby's to have her first drink as a 21-year-old with her grandmother. So now the scammer has a little bit of background that, hey, your granddaughter, we all know how much she likes to go to Limoncello and Barnaby's, and immediately you're not thinking clearly. You go, oh, that's right. This must be real. They have a lot of information.
Thank you.
If I could tack on to that,
Absolutely.
another place that they'll find information is if you are posting on a message board or something, some form of forum that is unique to a certain thing. So the example of the timeshares, that's a big one. Unfortunately, if you are on in like a grief group on Facebook or something like that, that's a good target for romance scams. The reality is that a lot of people's data has been exposed, whether it's the Target data breach or the Wawa data breach or the, go down the list of data breaches. You've probably had your credit card, debit card, phone number, information stolen. There are a lot of creative ways that people can come up with lists for people to reach out to. You could even, go to like a recorder of deeds and look and see how many deeds are, have been the same for the last 30 years. And you've got a list of names of people that are probably old. And so it's doing the simple things that the officers have pointed out to protect your data with wariness, and just, you can always trust but verify. That's the best way to keep yourself, even if you are on one of these lists, keep yourself safe.
Right. Yeah, and I can speak because I'm in marketing. I know we buy, lists all the time with info, for direct mailers. If you've ever gotten junk mail, that info comes from somewhere, and it's from professional businesses that sell it. And it's usually because they buy your information from a website, say Netflix. That info is for sale, and if it's not Netflix, then another company can deduce your address through other means. So it's like he said, your info's out there. So I guess it's just more about being vigilant. So I have Faith asked, actually, if a website only requires a password to log in, what are some ways you could add that second level of security?
You could ask it to not remember you.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way.
It's the easiest thing.
You don't have checked on their remember this device, and each time you're going to have to answer security questions, or you're going to be confronted with a multi-factor authentication prompt. Until multi-factors became the norm, for all of my banking things, I would never say remember this device. I would always say, no, I'll log in and I'll be inconvenienced, but it's going to be a second level of protection on my banking information.
And you need to look towards your passwords. We all kind of fall into the trap where we use the same 5 passwords. You just add an exclamation point or question mark at the end. It's your son's birthday or whatever it is. There are apps and sites that you can put onto your computer that as you go to a new site, it'll auto generate a completely different password, and it'll be 37 things long. It'll never remember it, but it'll be the most complicated password you can possibly think of. Just makes it that much harder for them to crack it when they try to.
Yeah. And I know personally, I actually just added 2-factor authentication on my bank account because a lot of these companies are becoming privy to it, and they'll have that option. You'll just have to drill down. It's usually under settings and then security. But it's worth, Googling. If you have TD Bank, just Google TD Bank 2-factor authentication. It's usually just some quick, easy steps. And now whenever I log on, they text me a code and I punch that in. So as info, gets more readily available, it's, companies are adjusting and giving you chances to protect yourself more. But so Kurt asked, any thoughts on fraud alerts or freezing your accounts or freezing your credit?
I know you want to go ahead, Aaron?
No, you're good.
You're good, Matt.
I have my credit reports locked because I got a notification from my bank that somebody was running up Samsung charges, and I have an iPhone, and so I knew right there. To his point, I don't have Samsung. That's not me, and so I immediately canceled my credit card, and I went and both pulled my free credit report for that year, and I went and I locked all of my TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian credit reports. And so what I will tell you from somebody that's looking at things from the perspective of individuals coming to apply for loans, it's not a difficult thing to go and take if you go and have your credit frozen, it's an easy process to have it unfrozen. You've got to have a number of identifying details about yourself to go and do it. And so it's not easy for somebody else to unfreeze, but it's not a huge pain to do, and it will stop people from being able to defraud you, because the biggest protection that you have in those sort of situations is that you are part of the crowd, and there are 6 billion other people on Earth, and if they have a little bit of pushback from you, it's easier just to move on to the next person. They're not going to sit there and try to convince you. They're going to hang up and they're going to move on to the next person. And so if they find a credit freeze on your credit profile, they're going to go on to the next stolen social security number and try and get a credit card in that one. So yes, I would recommend it.
Yeah, and then so in the case of something like the grandson scam, where maybe a foreign police station is calling you, who would you call to, validate how that's going? Can you call the local police and can they check for you, or would you have to find that police station's number?
Sure, you could reach out to us and we could help you get that information. It'd probably be easier for one of us to track down that police department or phone number, or find out that it doesn't exist. I would first try to call that the grandchild that they're referencing. It might be as simple as you call them, they answer the phone and say, "Hey, what's up? Why are you calling me?" And then you would find out right away that it's a scam.
And like Matt said before, there's nothing so urgent that it can't wait 5 minutes or a day or whatever it's going to be for you to verify that this is legitimate or not. It might be a bit of a pain if it is real and someone needed $3,000, but you got to do what's best for you in the long run.
Absolutely. Anybody else have any questions that they might want to throw in the chat down there? We can give it a couple minutes, but in the meantime, I want to thank you, Matt, Aaron, Dan. This has been great. Thanks for giving us your time, and to everybody else, thanks for joining us. I hope it was informative, and I'm going to follow up this event with an email that's going to have both a recording and it will have the PDF slides in case you just wanted to go in and read it. I know there was a lot of text and some smaller things. But yeah. So thanks again. I think that does it for all the questions, and that concludes the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
It
great
was a
time.
pleasure. If there's anything we can do for you, the phone number here to our police station is 610-696-2700.
And thank you very much for having me as well. And
Absolutely.
what I would say is if you have any questions about the financial side of things, regardless of who your bank is, you should be able to reach out to them and they'd be happy to walk you through it, because the reality is we all see far too much of this and we deal with it on a daily basis. And we'd be happy to, me speaking for the entire banking industry, we would be happy to give you some advice before you go and do something rash.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.